If you're about to pick up Dark Knight for the first time in Dawntrail and find it a bit overwhelming to get started, then this video is for you. This guide will teach you how to play Dark Knight at level 30 and then go on to explain how to use all of the actions you learned from level 30 to 50 in order, recommending ways to use actions as necessary. This also includes more general tanking advice. In the summary, we'll cover a detailed attack rotation for use at level 50 that encompasses all of the things you learned throughout this guide. Now then, Grit serves as your tank stance, greatly boosting your enmity generation, causing enemies to prioritize attacking you over others. This should typically always be turned on, unless you have a co-tank who's going to main tank. Always keeping it on is a nice default if you aren't sure. Next, let's talk about your basic attack combos. Hard Slash, Siphon Strike, and Soul Eater serves as your filler single target combo, or 1-2-3 combo. Siphon Strike restores 600 MP as a bonus, and Soul Eater also heals you for a bit. At this level, you should use this combo repeatedly when there are less than 3 targets, as the combination of the damage and the MP recovery of Siphon Strike makes it superior to other options. Make sure to alternate targets if there are 2 so you don't lose any of them. Speaking of other options, Unleash serves as your area of effect, or AoE for short, option. This should be used with 3 or more targets instead of your 1-2-3 combo. While not crucially important, it is worth noting that Unleash is a spell, and so if you have skill speed from your equipment, its recast time will not be affected, unlike your 1-2-3 combo. For ability attacks, you have Flood of Darkness. This spends 3000 MP to strike in a line in front of you, and as an ability, you can use this between your weapon skills and spells, commonly referred to as weaving. While in combat, all jobs recover 200 MP every 3 seconds, and for Dark Knight, this is supplemented by Siphon Strike. Flood of Darkness also boosts all damage you do for 30 seconds, and using it again with the buff already active will extend it, up to a maximum of 1 minute. Generally, you will recover enough MP for this to never be a problem to keep active. However, in extremely prolonged AoE fights, if they exist, you may want to conserve some MP for an extra use. Aside from that, you can weave Flood of Darkness once after each weapon skill or spell whenever you have the MP to do so. Make sure to aim yourself so the line AoE hits as many targets as possible. When pulling enemies, you can use Unmend as a ranged option, as its enmity multiplier makes it apply a ridiculous amount of enmity to the target. Provoke serves as the classic taunting action, placing you at the top of the enmity list, and applying a monstrous amount of enmity to the target. As it is an ability, you can weave this between other actions if you so desire. However, in content with multiple tanks present, I recommend only using Provoke strategically to switch who's tanking the boss. You can combine Unmend and Provoke to easily pull 3 or 4 enemies at range while sprinting past, which can be very helpful for pulling multiple packs at once. Next, regarding defensive cooldowns, Rampart reduces all damage you take, and Reprisal reduces the damage all enemies around you do for a while. Once you have pulled the enemies you plan to, and they're about to be in range, use Rampart to minimize the damage you take. If the fight prolongs much further than that, use Reprisal after Rampart ends. In most situations, it is best to only have one defensive cooldown active at a time if you don't need more than one to survive, as this lets you reduce the damage for longer, making it easier for your healer to deal with it. Stacking too many cooldowns will simply cause your healer to sit and have nothing to do, and then have too much to do when your cooldowns run out. This concept of using one cooldown at a time in this manner is often commonly called defensive cooldown cycling. I talk more in depth about this and other tanking techniques in another video, link in the description. For more utility-specific cooldowns, Low Blow allows you to stun enemies, which can be used to interrupt certain actions or give you a little bit of extra breathing room. Most bosses are immune to stuns, but many bosses in low-level dungeons are not, so it is worth testing sometimes. Interject can also be used to flat out interrupt interruptible actions, which are signified by a red, pulsing and flashing cast bar. It is almost always beneficial to interrupt actions, so do it whenever you can. With all that out of the way, let's talk about your level up actions. At level 32, you learn the ability and role action Arm's Length. This ability makes you immune to most knockback effects, and if a normal enemy hits you, its attack speed is slowed for a while. This makes it a very potent defensive tool on packs of enemies. I recommend adding it either after Reprisal or even alongside it in your defensive order, depending on the situation. At level 35, you learn the ability Blood Weapon. This causes your next 3 weapon skills or spells within 15 seconds to restore an additional 600 MP on a minute cooldown. As long as you have a target to attack for the duration, you are pretty much guaranteed to get all 3 swings every time, so this should be used on cooldown. Make sure to spend some MP quickly if you're close to full. At level 38, you learn the ability Shadow Wall, which reduces damage taken even more than Rampart. I recommend when pulling packs of enemies to use Shadow Wall for one pull and Rampart for another pull, if you can get away with it, so that you have a decently strong defensive cooldown for each pull. Sometimes you will need both Shadow Wall and Rampart to survive, and you simply have to deal with that as it comes. With that said, I recommend using Shadow Wall, then Reprisal for one pull, and Rampart, then Reprisal for another pull. You can use Arm's Length alongside Reprisal for pulls that really hurt to reduce the damage further. This both compensates for the rather weak potency of Reprisal, but also alleviates the downside of Arm's Length taking a few seconds to take effect. At level 40, you learn the spell Stalwart Soul, which is your follow-up attack after Unleash. Stalwart Soul also restores 600 MP like Siphon Strike, and this makes your AoE combo of Unleash and Stalwart Soul superior for damage output on 2 targets, meaning you should only use your 1-2-3 combo on one single target, or if you need the healing from Soul Eater to survive for some reason. Note that Stalwart Soul restoring MP also means that you no longer need to consider being conservative with your MP on AoE at all. You also learn the ability Edge of Darkness, which is a single target alternative to Flood of Darkness. Edge of Darkness is stronger than Flood of Darkness on 1 or 2 targets, they're equal on 3 targets, and Flood of Darkness is superior on 4 or more targets. You simply use whichever one applies to the amount of targets present. If using Edge of Darkness with multiple targets, it may be beneficial to use it on the healthiest target to make sure they all go down together. At level 45, you learn the ability Dark Mind, which is a defensive cooldown that reduces magic damage taken. If you're expecting magic damage at all, then it might be a good idea to use this, as the cooldown is very short and the effect very potent. To identify whether an attack is actually magic, take note of the icon next to the damage number when you're hit. A purple staff or wand indicates magic damage, while a blue sword indicates physical damage. A green POW icon means that it is so-called unique damage, and rarely, maybe, Dark Mind might work on these. At level 48, you learn the ability and role action Shirk, which transfers 25% of your enmity to your target. This is used for tank switching. When your tank partner uses Provoke to grab attention, you shirk your partner to push them further ahead, to ensure the enemy stays on them. This is most useful in high-level content, but is nonetheless useful to know how to use it. At level 50, you learn the ability Living Dead, which gets a little hairy to explain. When used, it prevents you from dying if you were to die within 10 seconds. If you do die, then the Living Dead effect is replaced with a fresh 10-second duration Walking Dead effect that causes your weapon skills and spells to heal you for an absolutely ridiculous amount per target hit. On top of this, while Walking Dead is active, you cannot die. However, if the duration of Walking Dead reaches 0, you die immediately. If you manage to get healed for 100% of your max HP within the duration of Walking Dead, it is replaced with Undead Rebirth. Finally, Undead Rebirth just makes you incapable of dying, and it will have whatever duration Walking Dead had left. Undead Rebirth does not include the massive healing effect and does not kill you if it runs out. Naturally, you should use Living Dead for do or die situations, and as it does very little at all if you never manage to die during it, it is better to use it when you're close to death rather than when you're healthy. Unless you know the incoming attack will kill you otherwise. If you're using Living Dead aggressively, then make sure to activate other defensive cooldowns once you've been healed fully by Walking Dead. As, while you will be unable to die during Undead Rebirth, you still need to help the healer prevent you from going that low on HP again. Now, to round off, let's cover an actual boss fight opener and rotation. Make sure grit is active unless there's another tank who's using their tank stance, in which case this is usually optional. As you run up to the boss, if you are tanking, pull with Provoke and then use Heart Slash, weaving Edge of Darkness and Blood Weapon. Then use Siphon Strike, weaving Edge of Darkness, Soul Eater weaving Edge of Darkness again, then Heart Slash weaving Edge of Darkness one more time. Finish your 1-2-3 combo and this leads to the general rotation. Dark Knight at this level functions on a relatively simple rotation of using 1-2-3 combos, Blood Weapon on cooldown, and Edge of Darkness whenever you can. This gives you a lot of breathing room to use your defensive cooldowns when you want or need to. For AoE adjustments, replace your 1-2-3 combo with the 1-2 AoE combo of Unleash and Stalwart Soul when there are 2 or more targets, unless you need the healing from Soul Eater to survive, although generally you should not need this. With 3 targets, you can freely choose between using Edge of Darkness or Flood of Darkness. However, with 4 or more targets, you should use Flood of Darkness. Note that the attack is a line in front of you, so make sure to clump the enemies together in front of you as best you can. Although, you should do this even if you're not using Flood of Darkness, as it makes it easier for the rest of your group to land their AoE if you do so. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, Blood Weapon used to be a strict 10-second duration buff with no stack system, which meant you needed a certain amount of skill speed alongside extremely good timing of weaving it to be able to consistently fit 5 weapon skills within the duration. You could completely forget about fitting spells in it, as the unchanged cast times of these would never allow you to fit 5 of them in.